Welcome back, everyone. Pal Ponder on weather here. In this update, we've got several areas of disturbed weather happening over the next couple of days, plus two areas of tropical moisture that we'll be watching, and a ridge of high pressure that's been really dominating for those areas out west will slowly migrate eastbound as we head into next week, bringing the warmest temperature so far this season. So let's take a look at the setup this morning on the satellite view. Here's your areas of disturbed weather. The first one is really highlighted across much of Wisconsin, back into Minnesota, as well as into Iowa this morning. There's another convective complex, a little MCS system that's dropped a lot of heavy flooding rains just south of the Childress region. That is diving southeast bound and bringing Texas a pretty good soaking later on this afternoon. We also have the instability in the disturbed weather that's really impacting Florida now, especially southwestern Florida. We've got flood warnings across that region as we've got spokes of energy that's going to be pounding that region with flooding rains. And we also have another little area of disturbed weather right off the southeast coast. In fact, the National Hurricane Center has highlighted that as a 20% probability of it trying to form in some sort of tropical entity. So, it's right out here in the open waters. I think it's got a kind of a short window if it really does. Nonetheless, it could be a hybrid or a subtropical system. If it happens to form over the next couple of days, it would take the name Alberto, and as it would likely shift out into the open waters of the Atlantic. So for today, we do have several pockets of severe storms. First, that instability that we highlighted across Minnesota, back into Wisconsin, portions of Iowa this afternoon, but a little bit stronger piece of energy with that mesoscale convective system that's south of Childress this morning will be diving southeast. A little bit of more instability down towards San Antonio into the San Angelo region. Some of those could be some larger hail producers and some higher wind producers as well. But nonetheless, those are going to be diving east to southeast. And there's that pocket of energy highlighted over Florida with all those tropical winds. And then really, basically along the East Coast here, some of those areas back into, North Carolina, back into Virginia could pick up some stronger thunderstorms, in the heat of the afternoon. But yes, for today, there's that convective complex that's really impacting Texas this morning. South of the Childress region, that mesoscale convective complex will be diving southeast bound, bringing some of those light to moderate, if not some heavier rains at times in portions of the Dallas-Fort Worth area back into central Texas, but especially a little bit stronger activity as you swing further out west into San Angelo, back through San Antonio towards the Del Rio region. And that will continue to dive southeast as we get into the later on this afternoon into early evening, eventually heading towards Huntsville, those areas back into Conroe, as well as into the Houston Metroplex, likely later on this evening. But further north as we head into tomorrow, all eyes will be trending further north as more instability would likely come back into play, and some low-level shear that's mainly highlighted across Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa. Those could be some stronger storms as we head into Wednesday. In fact, we could see some a hatched risk, some of that very large hail, that 2-inch plus variety, especially there into Sioux Falls region, back into the Minneapolis areas, into far northwestern portions of Iowa, but can't rule out extending well north all the way to the Canadian border, all the way into Marquette, further south and back into Des Moines, back into areas of, into Nebraska there. And with that low-level shear, we are expecting an isolated tornado or two that could unfold across this region from Duluth back into Minnesota, into La Crosse, as well as into the Des Moines region, into Omaha, back into Sioux Falls later on tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow night timeframe on Wednesday. So here's your overall helicity of drafts where some of the, potentially some of the larger hail could be. Not terribly too concerned about this activity down there in Texas. Some of those could be just some quarter size, maybe some mixed golf ball size at times, but definitely more concerning for those areas just around Minneapolis, maybe just south of there. That's a pretty good indication of some pretty intense, larger hail that could be unfolding as well as maybe a possible tornado or two. So definitely be on the lookout, I would say, anywhere from that 4 to 10 o'clock time frame as we especially head into tomorrow. And then even further north, you can't roll out just because you live along the Canadian border that you can't get severe storms. You can definitely do that, even into Canada as well. And it would likely be into tomorrow afternoon if that were to, come to fruition. But overall, the next 48 hours kind of looks like this, right? I mean, just basically three pockets of energy, not much out west with that ridge of high pressure. There's the convective complex, this little MCS system that's going to be impacting Texas today and some portions into central Texas tomorrow. And then there's the instability that's highlighted for today as well as into tomorrow across Minnesota, Wisconsin, as well as into Iowa. And then we have that other convective complex with all that tropical rains that's impacting much of Florida, especially southwest Florida, with all those tropical rains. And that's just over the next 2 days. And that really doesn't end there because the tropical feed lasts even several days after that. But by the time we head into Thursday, there's the convective complex that was really going to be highlighted over Minneapolis and Sioux Falls on Wednesday will continue to drop southeastbound. Now we're talking those areas into Denver, back into Goodland, as well as into the Topeka region, as well as getting into Wichita, Kansas City, back into Springfield, and even further north back into Chicago, into Grand Rapids, and even can't roll out as far as Gaylord, picking up some marginally induced thunderstorms in the heat of the afternoon, but especially a little bit stronger activity as you head into Kansas City and to Springfield. But overall, the heavier rain is going to be prevalent. You got a lot of high water content values approaching the 2-inch per hour range. So kind of a little bit slow moving. So yes, it could unload some very heavy rainfall in a short amount of time across this region. And then of course, Florida, especially Southwest Florida, just continues to be raked with all that tropical rains, as we'll be watching this little hybrid, if not maybe subtropical system trying to form as it heads out into the open waters of the Atlantic. But by the time we head into Friday, you can really see the difference of most of the instability is going to be losing its luster, if you will, as it moves into portions of the mid-Atlantic and getting back into the Northeast. So these could be some light to moderate rains, but nothing more than that. It's really the ridge of high pressure. We'll be watching it start to build out west, and that area finally starts to try to unwind down there in South Florida. But I mean, it's going to be another 4, 5, even maybe 6 days before that ends. So overall, for the next 5 days between now and Saturday, there's the cooler anomalies right now. So you are expecting experience some pretty pleasant light conditions across much of the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, back into the Tennessee Valley, getting into the mid-Atlantic regions. And then, of course, the only cooler anomalies is where all the rain is down there in South Florida. But that ridge of high pressure that's been really locked over a good part of the western regions will finally be on the move. And as it does, it's going to continue to shift off to the east and expand. But overall, for the next 5 days, this is where the rainfall estimates are. Again, it's just mainly these three little complexes. This mesoscale convective complex, it's highlighted today, that finishes off tomorrow for a good part of Texas, and I don't think anything happens after that. And then, of course, you got the northern bound that's going to leave some showers and thunderstorms, and some of those in the blue shaded area could pick up a 1/2 inch to 1 inch. Some of those areas into the yellow shaded area could pick up 1 to 1.5 inches. There's the flooding rains and the concerning range with some foot totals between now and Saturday time frame for especially southwestern Florida. Much of the panhandle likely misses out on most of this activity, at least through Saturday. That could change as we head deeper into the weekend, as a piece of this energy starts to migrate across the Gulf of Mexico and likely end up in the Bay of Campeche. So because we do have a ridge of high pressure that's finally going to be moving in and kicking that low pressure out. So we'll have a piece of it pulling out in the open waters, and then this ridge will start to build on the backside, finally shutting off the tropical flow, and that will shift it westward. And as it does, we'll have an area of disturbed weather down there into the Bay of Campeche. That'll open the doors, or at least the southern flank of these, coastal regions along the I-10 corridor, right in the southern areas, could likely, get some heavier rains as we head into early next week, because this little tropical entity is another system that has a very, very small chance of forming. And I do feel like if it even does form, it's not going to impact the United States. It's likely going to go into Central America or Mexico, but nonetheless, it's going to be at least close enough to put some of that tropical moisture into some of these areas that actually need the rainfall down there into South Texas and really along the southeast, along into the deep south. So if we look at this setup as we head into next week, that little disturbed weather that's highlighted over Florida will slowly migrate, westbound. And as it does, it'll extend the tropical rains. We'll likely get into those areas in the Florida Panhandle by then, by the late this weekend into early next week. And these will migrate across Louisiana and those areas in the deep south of Texas, say Houston, Galveston, Victoria, Corpus Christi, down into Brownsville, further into the Rio Grande Valley. They desperately need the rain, and you're likely going to get some pretty good soakings with this little tropical type moisture that's going to be impacting that region. So if you can see, by the time we head into next week, we've got that ridge of high pressure going to be building from the west and slowly building out, especially into the northeast, with some of those hottest temperatures so far this season, as we'll be watching this little tropical little disturbance. And most ensembles have it going well into Mexico, and if not almost crossing over back into the Pacific, but it's at least going to be close enough to at least bring some showers and thunderstorms and some heavier rains across the very deep south areas of the deep south and deep south of Texas. But once that moves out, that ridge will win, right? So by the time we head into, the middle of next week, around 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th time frame, that ridge of high pressure as a more of a summertime pattern will really start to take shape in a big way, with easily the warmest, if not hottest temperatures so far, typically kind of what you expect this time of year as we head into, that first day, official day of, summer here. But overall, we've got, heading into next week, especially for those areas that are experiencing some of those cooler anomalies, are going to replace with big time heat well into the 90s across a good part of the Ohio Valley and much of the Mid-Atlantic and into the Northeast, with anywhere from slight to moderate risk for excessive heat for them, as much of the country will be under that, that ridge of high pressure and that dominating heat. Really the only cooler, if not cooler, pocket anomalies around will be just the far extreme portions of the Pacific Northwest. Everybody else is above average. And once you swing into those, Ohio Valley region and back into the Mid-Atlantic, this is over 90% above average, what you would typically see this time of year. So that basically spells a lot of heat coming for a good part of the upper Midwest and much of the Mid-Atlantic. This is as you head into Monday next week, and these numbers are well into the 90s. Back in 97 in Illinois, 97 in Indiana, 96, even mid-90s, well up in there into Michigan, getting into Wisconsin. And that, extends into Pittsburgh, 97 degrees. So, as we head into Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, that heat will likely even build even further. And I wouldn't be surprised if some triple-digit temperatures will likely start dotting the map in a good part of the Ohio Valley and the Mid-Atlantic and even portions of the Northeast by then. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe to my channel and catch me next update. Why I protect you before and after the storm.